I found an old family video where I wasn't supposed to be there. I had always been one of those people who believed that the past was just that, the past. There was no point in digging it up, no reason to linger on memories that couldn't be changed. But when I found the old family box in the attic that day, I didn't expect it to crack open a door I had long shut and forgotten about. The box was tucked away at the very back of the attic, buried under a mountain of forgotten things. Old furniture, dusty books, clothes I hadn't worn in years. My parents had never been ones to throw things away, and every time I moved from place to place, it seemed like I'd end up with more and more of their clutter. It was a mixture of sentimentality and laziness, I suppose. But on that afternoon, I needed a distraction. Work had been exhausting, and the weight of everyday life had left me feeling disconnected from everything. So I found myself in the attic on my hands and knees, pulling out boxes and sorting through memories that I hadn't thought about in years. Some things were expected, old toys, mementos from school, letters from friends. But what caught my eye was a simple, unlabeled VHS tape. It was old, too old really, but there was something about it that stopped me from tossing it aside like the rest of the junk. I dusted it off and examined it more closely. The label had faded over time, but I could make out the words family video, summer 1995. It didn't mean anything to me immediately. My family had always been one to record events, birthdays, holidays, family trips. It wasn't unusual to find old tapes lying around, tucked away in forgotten corners. I grabbed the nearest VHS player I could find and popped the tape in, unsure of what I was about to see. The TV flickered to life, and the grainy black and white images began to take shape. The first few seconds were shaky, the camera moving erratically as if someone was trying to find the right angle. Then slowly, it stabilized. I saw my parents sitting on the couch, laughing. They looked so young, so carefree. My mother was wearing a bright floral dress, her hair styled in the way it had been in the early 90s, and my dad looked exactly like he did when I was a kid. But then my attention was drawn to the background. There, standing next to them, was a face I didn't recognize. The figure was blurry at first, as if the camera hadn't quite focused in time. But soon the image became clearer, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw a young boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing next to my parents, smiling at the camera. He was dressed in a little striped shirt, his brown hair sticking out in every direction, but I didn't recognize him. I couldn't place him at all. I paused the video and stared at the screen. I had seen this footage before, or at least, I had seen similar footage. Family trips, birthday parties, all the moments that had been captured over the years. But I had never seen him, the boy, before. He was in the same video, clearly with my parents, yet somehow, I was sure I had never seen him in any family photos or videos. He wasn't someone I recognized from any of the holidays or gatherings I could remember. He looked out of place. I rewound the video to the point where the boy first appeared and watched it again. This time, I took a closer look at the way my parents interacted with him. It was casual, loving even. They smiled at him like he was a part of the family, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Why had I never seen him before? I watched the tape again from the beginning, hoping to find some sort of explanation. There was more footage of family gatherings, the boy appearing occasionally in the background, helping my dad with a barbecue, playing with my sister, sitting at the table with us at a family dinner. But again, there was no real explanation of who he was. No introduction, no name, just the boy. I had to know more. I grabbed my phone and dialed my sister, Emma. She was the one who had always kept track of family details, the genealogical history, the old photos, the family stories. She was the one who remembered everything. I wasn't sure why, but I needed her to see this. "Hey, Em, you're not going to believe what I found," I said, the excitement in my voice tinged with unease. "I found an old family video from the 90s in the attic. It's from 1995, I think. You've got to see this." "What's so special about it?" she asked, her voice uninterested, clearly distracted. Just come over. There's someone in the video I don't recognize. It's a little boy around my age when the video was taken. He's just there, with mom and dad, and I don't know who he is. I've never seen him before in any of our family photos. I heard Emma's silence on the other end of the line. Wait, what? A little boy? She asked, her tone shifting to concern. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure, I replied, my fingers tightening around the phone. You need to come over and see this. Something's not right. It didn't take long for her to show up. When Emma walked into the living room, she immediately asked to see the video. I queued it up, and we both sat there watching the screen. The same blurry image of the boy appeared, and Emma's expression shifted as she saw him. I don't know who that is either, she said, sounding puzzled. I mean, I really don't know. He's not one of our cousins. He's not someone I remember. I glanced over at Emma, waiting for her to say something more, but she just sat there, biting her lip. Wait a minute, she said, her voice low. There's more footage of him. Was he always with us? Did mom and dad ever say anything about him? I shook my head. No, nothing. It's like he just showed up, but he was never mentioned. I don't know how this is possible. Emma leaned forward, her fingers tapping anxiously on the table. We need to ask mom. She might know something we don't. I shook my head quickly. No way, not yet. I'm not going to just ask her. There's something wrong with this video, Em. I can feel it. It's like they were hiding something. Emma hesitated for a moment. I agree, she said quietly, but I think we need to be careful. If this kid's part of the family, there's a reason we don't know about him. We don't just go digging into things without understanding what we're dealing with. I felt the unease crawl up my spine as I watched the boy on the screen again, smiling like he belonged there. But I knew something was off. I had to know more, and I wasn't going to stop until I found out who this boy was. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me as I kept replaying the video in my head. There was no way I could ignore it. The boy in the video wasn't just some distant relative or family friend. He was too integrated into the moments that were meant to be private, family moments. The kind you shared only with those closest to you. His presence felt wrong. I tried to push the questions aside, but each time I closed my eyes, I saw him, his smiling face, standing next to my parents like he had every right to be there. My parents, the people I had grown up with, who I had known so well, had a child, another child, whom I had never known about. A child who was never mentioned in any family conversations, never shown in any pictures, and certainly never discussed in any of the stories I'd heard growing up. The whole thing seemed like a bad dream, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that it was real. That something important was hidden in plain sight, and I had missed it for my entire life. I couldn't go on pretending I wasn't curious. I couldn't let it rest. I had to find out who this boy was and why I'd never heard of him. So I did what anyone would do. I turned to my sister, Emma. We had always been close growing up. She was the one I'd confide in when I was upset, the one I'd laugh with at the dinner table, the one who could always make me feel better when life was too heavy. But I hadn't mentioned the boy to her before. Maybe it was because I didn't want to believe it, or maybe it was because I was scared that she might not remember him either. That night after I showed her the video, she seemed just as shocked as I was. Her face had gone pale when the boy appeared on screen. I could see the gears turning in her head as she replayed the video, pausing it to get a closer look. But even she didn't know who he was. She sat back, biting her lip, shaking her head as if it would make the mystery go away. I have no idea who this kid is, she said after a long silence, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm not crazy. I've never seen him before. Neither have I said, glancing back at the video that was still paused on the screen. And I've watched every family video. I know we've been through old photos together. So why does this kid show up in a video I've never seen before? Why is he just there? Emma didn't answer right away. She was clearly thinking it through, weighing the situation in her mind. "We need to talk to Mom," she finally said, but I could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. Maybe she knows something about him. I shook my head. No, not yet. I can't just ask her out of the blue. If she knew who he was, why would she have never mentioned him? Why is he completely absent from every family memory we've ever shared? Emma sighed, looking at me with that familiar look of concern. "Then what do? We can't just let this go. There's clearly something here. Maybe we can ask Dad." I stiffened at the mention of my father. He had always been the most consistent part of our family, the person we could turn to when we needed help, the one who had answers. But even he hadn't been the same since Mom passed away. He'd withdrawn more and more over the years, and now he rarely talked about the past. Asking him about this boy, about the video, felt like opening a door that had been bolted shut for a reason. "I don't know," I muttered, running my hand through my hair. "I don't want to stir up anything, not until I know what's really going on." Emma looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You're not going to find the answers by sitting here and speculating. We need to figure this out, and we need to do it fast before someone else tries to." That was the moment it hit me, someone else. The thought chilled me to the bone. What if this wasn't just about us? What if there was something bigger at play here? Something that involved more than just family secrets? I couldn't ignore the creeping fear that someone else might have been behind this mystery. What if the boy in the video wasn't just a forgotten family member, but someone deliberately hidden for reasons none of us could understand? My father's side of the family was never one to keep secrets, but what if there was a part of our past that wasn't meant to be found? I spent the rest of that night in a fog. The thoughts spun around in my head like a whirlpool, dragging me deeper into a place I wasn't prepared to go. But I couldn't stop. The mystery of the boy in the video had opened a door I couldn't close, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized how badly I needed answers. I went back to the attic the next morning, determined to search for more clues. I needed to know if the boy was a fluke, or if he was a key to something far darker. Maybe there was more to that old family video than just the boy's presence. I pulled out more old tapes and started scanning through them, one by one. I rewound and fast-forwarded through the grainy footage of birthdays, holidays, and vacations, looking for any sign of the boy. But there was nothing, not even a trace. That's when I found it. One particular video caught my eye. It was labeled Christmas 1993. I had never seen it before. The box was tucked behind the others, almost as if someone had hidden it on purpose. I set the tape into the VCR and hit play. The screen flickered to life, showing the familiar sight of our old living room, the Christmas tree in the corner. Mom and Dad were sitting on the couch, handing out presents. Emma and I were in the background, laughing and playing with some new toys. But there in the corner of the frame was the boy again. This time he was sitting next to Dad. I could see his face more clearly now. He looked exactly like he had in the other video, his big brown eyes shining with excitement as he tore open a gift. But now there was something different. This time I could hear the conversation. "Are you excited for tomorrow?" Dad asked the boy, his voice warm and kind. The boy smiled. "I can't wait for the big day. I'm going to show you all my new things." It was just a moment, but it struck me like a punch in the gut. This wasn't just some kid from a forgotten corner of a family event. This was someone who was clearly involved, someone who was a part of our family. Why had he never been mentioned? I rewound the video and paused it right before the boy spoke. I studied his face, trying to understand how I could have missed this. My heart raced. I had to know who this kid was. What was his connection to our family? Why was he erased from every memory I had? I hit the stop button and quickly ejected the tape. There was no more time to waste. I needed answers. The air in the attic felt thick, oppressive, as if the very dust in the air was settling on me, weighing me down. I stared at the old tape in my hands, the one I had just ejected from the VCR. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the words, the looks, the moments I had just witnessed. There was no way I could keep ignoring this, no way I could pretend like everything was fine. The boy in the video was real, and he was a part of my family, or at least I had thought so. The deeper I dug, the more uncertain everything became. I had to know who he was, but I was beginning to realize just how much I didn't know about my own family. I grabbed the old family album scattered across the attic, flipping through pages filled with photographs of me, Emma, and our parents from different points in time. Birthdays, family vacations, Christmas mornings, all the memories I had lived. But as I flipped, my eyes scanned every face in every picture, searching for some clue, some familiarity in the boy from the video. There was nothing. No photographs of him, no memories of him, not one single mention in all the family records I had. My frustration was mounting. How was it possible that this boy, someone who seemed so integral to the family events in those videos, was completely absent from all the family photos? How had he just disappeared? I went back to the VCR. I needed to watch the footage again. There had to be something I missed. I fast-forwarded the video to the part where the boy appeared, then paused it just before he spoke. I wanted to study his face. I wanted to see if there was something I could pick up on, a sign that would connect him to the family, some clue that had been hidden from me. But as I sat there, staring at the boy's smiling face, something strange began to happen. My mind kept flashing back to a conversation I had with my mother when I was younger, a conversation that seemed so unimportant at the time, but now it felt relevant. It was about family, about the relatives we didn't often talk about. My mother had mentioned, in passing, how some family members had gone missing over the years, people who had simply faded out of the picture without explanation. I'd always brushed it off as just a distant memory, something I didn't need to concern myself with. But now, as I stared at the boy on the screen, I couldn't shake the feeling that this boy was somehow connected to that conversation. I needed to speak with Mom. The thought of confronting her was unsettling. I had spent my entire life trusting her, believing that everything was just as it appeared. But this was different. Something was off. If she knew who the boy was, why hadn't she ever mentioned him? And why had she kept this secret from me? I could already imagine the conversation, the way she'd brush it off or offer some half-hearted explanation. I wasn't sure I was ready for the truth, whatever it might be. But the gnawing feeling inside me told me there was no way out. I called her, my hand shaking slightly as I dialed the number. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hello," her voice sounded tired but warm like it always did. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to talk to you about something. I found something in the attic and I need you to tell me what's going on." There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean, something?" she asked, her tone shifting from casual to cautious. I could tell she wasn't sure where this conversation was heading. "I found a family video," I said, my voice trembling. "A video from Christmas 1995. You and Dad are in it, but there's someone else, a boy. I don't recognize him and he's not in any of the family photos. He's never been mentioned in any of our family stories. So, who is he, Mom? Why have I never seen him before?" There was a long silence, longer than I had expected. My mother didn't speak for several seconds, and when she finally did, her voice was tight, cautious. "You're sure it was a family video? Are you sure you're remembering it right?" she asked, but there was an edge to her voice, something that made my stomach churn. "I'm sure. He's in the video, Mom. He looks like he's part of the family, but I've never seen him before. Never." The silence stretched out again and I felt a chill creep over me. I waited for her to speak, but she didn't. The tension was unbearable. Finally, she sighed. "Look, honey, there are some things you're not ready to understand. Some things about our family, things that aren't easy to explain." "Mom," I interrupted, my voice growing more urgent. "I need to know, who is he? Why is he in the video? Why have I never seen him before?" "Some things are better left in the past," she said quietly, her voice strained. "Trust me, it's better if you don't ask any more questions." I felt my heart sink. I could hear the finality in her voice, the unspoken warning that I wasn't going to get any more answers, but I refused to let it go. There was no way I could just drop it, not now. Not when everything I knew was starting to unravel. "I'm not going to stop asking, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to know the truth." There was another long pause, and for a moment, I thought she wasn't going to say anything more. But then she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "I never wanted you to find out. I never wanted you to have to know this." "Know what?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the line went dead. The phone clicked and went silent. I stared at the receiver, my pulse pounding in my ears. What just happened? Why had she hung up on me? I sat there, frozen, unable to move. My thoughts were racing, and I couldn't make sense of what had just occurred. The boy was somehow connected to something my mother didn't want me to know, something she thought I wasn't ready to understand. But I had to understand. There was no way I could let it go. I looked back at the video, at the smiling face of the boy who seemed so at ease with my parents. His innocence on screen was a stark contrast to the growing sense of unease that was gnawing at me. There was no way this was some coincidence. I needed answers. I couldn't stop now. I just had to figure out what the hell was going on. The next day, I decided to do what I should have done from the start. I needed to investigate. If my mother wouldn't talk to me, then I'd find someone else who could. I needed to speak to someone who knew my parents better than I did, someone who had been around long before I was born. I had to talk to the one person who could have answers, the one person who had witnessed it all. My grandmother. The moment I decided to call my grandmother, I felt a strange combination of dread and hope. There was something about her calm demeanor, her ability to see things from a distance, that made me think she might know more than anyone else about my family's secrets. But at the same time, I feared what the truth might mean. I had already uncovered a part of my father's life I hadn't known existed, and now, with my mother refusing to answer my questions, I was about to uncover more of the past than I was prepared for. I spent the next several hours debating whether or not to call her. My grandmother had always been a steady, guiding force in my life, someone who offered warmth and wisdom. But she wasn't one to discuss family matters lightly. In fact, the few times I'd heard her mention the past, she would always stop herself, as though there was some unwritten rule about never revisiting certain topics. I wasn't sure what I expected from her, but something inside me told me that she might know exactly what I was looking for. By the time I dialed her number, the day had already started to darken, and the house felt quieter, emptier than usual. It was as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for me to uncover the truth. My grandmother picked up on the second ring, her familiar voice offering some comfort, but it was tinged with concern. "Alex, what's wrong, dear? You sound upset." "Grandma," I started, swallowing hard. "I need to ask you something. It's about the family, about Mom and Dad. I found something. Well, I found a video from 1995 and there's a boy in it. I don't know who he is, and I need to understand why I've never seen him before, why he's not in any family photos." Mom wouldn't answer me, and I stopped myself. My voice was shaking. I wasn't sure how much of the truth I was ready to hear, but I needed to hear it all. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought she had hung up. But then I heard her soft sigh. "You found it, didn't you?" Her voice was quieter now, almost as if she were talking to herself, but then she spoke directly to me. "You found the tape." I was shocked by how quickly she seemed to know exactly what I was talking about. It wasn't just a random discovery. It was as though she had been waiting for me to find it. My pulse quickened as I leaned in closer to the phone. "What do you know about the boy?" I asked, my voice rising with urgency. "Grandma, who is he? Why is he in that video, and why have I never seen him before? Why has he been erased from everything?" My grandmother sighed again, this time a long, heavy exhale that seemed to carry years of untold stories. Alex, she began, her voice laced with sorrow, you've always known there were things about our family that weren't easy to understand. Your mother and father, they made choices. They kept things from you, things I never thought you needed to know. I closed my eyes, my heart pounding. My grandmother's words made it feel like the air had been sucked out of the room. What do you mean? What did they keep from me? What was I supposed to understand? Another long silence filled the line, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady but filled with an undeniable sadness. Your mother never wanted you to know, she began, her words carefully chosen. She never wanted anyone to know, but I think it's time you did. That boy you saw on the tape, Alex. His name was Caleb. He was part of your family, part of your life. But there's more to that story than you're ready to hear, more than your mother ever wanted you to know. Caleb, I repeated, my throat tight. Who was he? Why was he with us? Why was he erased from everything? My grandmother paused for a long time, the kind of pause that made me feel as though I was standing at the edge of something far too big to comprehend. He was your brother, Alex, she said, her voice almost a whisper. Your older brother, the one who disappeared. The words hung in the air, and for a moment I couldn't process what she had said. Older brother. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, trying to connect the pieces that had never fit before. I had never heard anything about an older brother. I had never seen anyone in our family who even resembled me. And yet my grandmother was telling me that this boy, Caleb, had been my brother. My older brother. How could I have missed that? Disappeared, I croaked. What do you mean disappeared? What happened to him? Why is he? Why was he never mentioned? Caleb was a part of our lives for a long time, my grandmother explained, her voice heavy with sorrow. But things changed. Things went wrong. Your parents got involved in something they never told you about. Caleb, he wasn't supposed to be in the family. He was taken from us. Taken? I asked, my voice faltering. Taken by who? Why? What are you talking about? My grandmother's voice dropped even lower, as though the words she was about to say were too heavy to carry. I don't know the full story, Alex. Your parents tried to protect you from it. Caleb wasn't just a normal child. He was part of something your father and mother got caught up in, something they shouldn't have. But it wasn't just your parents' choice. They couldn't stop it. And when Caleb became too much of a threat, they had to make him disappear. It was the only way to protect you and Emma. I felt the ground beneath me tilt. Caleb wasn't just my brother. He was a part of something dark, something dangerous. My head was spinning as the implications of her words settled in. Disappeared. My family, my parents, had been hiding this from me my entire life. Why had I never known? Why had this boy been erased so completely from every family memory? Grandma, what do you mean Caleb was taken? I asked, the words spilling out like I couldn't stop them. Why would they do that? How could they just make him disappear? They had no choice, my grandmother said, her voice trembling with the weight of the truth. It wasn't just their decision. There were people involved, people who knew what Caleb was. He had abilities, Alex, things that your father and mother never told you about, things they couldn't control. Your father got in deep with a group of people. They didn't just want your family's money. They wanted Caleb's, gifts. But when he became too much of a liability, they had to erase him. They had to make him vanish. I felt like I had been struck in the chest. What abilities? I whispered. What are you talking about? My grandmother's voice grew quieter, almost like she was afraid of being overheard. Caleb had abilities that couldn't be explained. Your father got involved with people who wanted to harness those abilities, to use them for their own gain. But Caleb was just a child. They didn't understand what he was capable of, so they took him. And your parents had to hide the truth for your own safety. I felt a chill run down my spine. Caleb had abilities that had made him a target, and my parents, my mother, had been involved in something so dangerous, so dark, that they had to erase their own son from their lives, erase my brother from my life. The reality of it hit me like a ton of bricks. Where is he now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know, she said, her voice shaking. I don't know what happened to him after they took him, but I think you need to be prepared. There's more to this story, Alex. And if you keep digging, you might uncover things that you're not ready to understand. The line went silent, and I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. My mind raced, trying to process the flood of information that had just been dumped on me. Caleb wasn't just an unknown relative in a family video. He was my brother, and my family, my parents, had hidden him from me, erased him from my life because of something dark, something dangerous. But that wasn't the end of it. My grandmother was right. I was already too deep. I had already uncovered something I wasn't supposed to know, and now there was no turning back. The truth about Caleb, about my family, was just beginning to unfold. And I was the one who had to piece it all together.